Okay. Um, my background could be noisy, so that's what I'm trying to find out. Um, could appear there's some other activities going on in the neighborhood. Nothing really I can actually do for now, but hopefully it will subside. But if you are able to hear me, then we can actually be able to continue under the circumstances. My apology. These are some other people I might not be having any control about. So having said that, that's why we are starting late. I've tried all I could to ensure that they are informed to move to another site. Unfortunately, it has not occurred. Now, hopefully every one of you had a restful weekend, and last week we are here. So welcome back to today's lecture. This is our second lecture. And so we want to continue with our discussions on the areas we had indicated we were to discuss. Last week, I gave what I could say a preamble, or can I say basic kind of indication of what you'd expect in this particular course. So what I basically call an introduction. And as time went by, I also indicated that this course will require you to be occasionally be reading some articles and also offer some criticism on how things are, to have your opinion about ICT. So maybe what I didn't mention is that for a long, I think I mentioned it. For a long period of time, we have always talked about the positive side of ICT. But as it were, everything has its positivity and negativities. And that is what this course is going to, you are looking at all aspects of ICT, both infrastructure or hardware things, and then you also look at aspects to do with people and society, and hence the social informatics. Then I went ahead and I shared materials that you were to read and perhaps then prepare for today's lecture. So let me again confirm that indeed we all got the materials. So maybe I could ask John Ngoge, did you get the materials?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I got the materials.
Oh, great. So I hope every one of us had the materials. So I want to invite one of you just to discuss with us um, something about what you read. To give a preamble what you read, and then we try to uh, make a sense of this. So I want to invite any one of us. It was an open document that you were all to read. And I hope you got time to read. So who can take us through what you found out? How was the article? Just general comments from your side. Any one of you. You can raise your arm and then you. Yes, Wambua, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so or when I read the article, I found it really interesting.
Yeah.
Especially there's a place where he mentioned some two debates basically that are used when you're showcasing like the value of social informatics, where he was looking at the aspect of the how much it needs to be analyzed. It's very demanding in terms of analysis, and also like the need for more methods and more diverse methods of analysis, and also basically to it has to sort of also showcase the old methods of computerization. also I found interesting like the findings of social informatics, where he looked at like five different like he said that they are the things that are rediscovered by so many different people. For instance, that ICT is very paradoxical, such that one effect rarely just does the task it's intended to do, but also has like side effects on the side, such as like peer-to-peer file sharing. Whereas one person might find it very useful for getting like music, another person will find it that their copyright is are being infringed. Also, he also mentioned that the interest level is always varied depending on the people looking at it. For instance, the same example we used, young people are very responsive to peer-to-peer file sharing, but then when it comes to the leaders of the music industry, for instance, they usually try and also come up with like mitigation to try and regulate the usage. So overall, I found it a really informative article.
Thank you, Mbua. Thank you. Quite a good analysis, and I like that analysis. It gives us a perspective to actually get to appreciate how the society is seeing these things. Thank you for that candid and in-depth analysis. So again, I want, let's see, Rebecca Wambua. Yes, thank you. I want to invite any one of us who could then relate the writing of Steve to our context, our current situation. He wrote that is some time back. Do you find it relevant in the current situation? Any one of us who could actually say, does it communicate with us in the current situation as a society, Kenya as a society, and of course in a community of nations? Any one of you who could actually tell us how can we relate this to ourselves, over and above, in a sense, complementing what Rebecca has indicated. Yeah, okay, yes, and yes, what I'm saying is that now, given the writings and the document that you read, and what Wambua has actually very well articulated, how do we see it communicating to us in the current situation? Is it relevant? In other words, is it relevant to the Kenyan situation? Can we pick examples in the Kenyan situation whereby we could actually say, fine, here technology is this way or technology is the other way? So, yes, I hope I explained it. So, any one of you could raise your hand and then address us. Yes, Waweru.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah. So I'll just bring about some of the issues that we actually face in our society because of ICT. Of course, there are the benefits. There are the people who benefit, and there are those who actually do not. Okay, I wouldn't say don't want people to benefit. And a very good example is online business and digital businesses. So there are many people who have benefited from having their businesses online, selling clothes, selling services like doing research papers, or actually helping out in various ways. Basically, conducting trade on and services online. However, the government has been trying to tax these people because of unfortunately, these people who conduct online business do not pay tax, and they can evade tax. So this is something that has actually made the government rethink how the tax businesses and how they need to structure themselves in order to incorporate these digital businesses into the formal job market, or let's say business market. So yeah, and has also um, affected the people on the other end who actually have these businesses. So some of them either have to, use various tactics to not get taxed, or they have to register online. So it actually changes the social fabric of the society and how business is actually done.
Great, great. Thank you, Wawelu. In fact, what you actually indicated, I happen to be not. I'm not sitting as a member of that committee. There's a committee you may be aware, which was formed by the CS for uh, Information and Communication, Honorable Minister. He formed a committee to advise what they call the COVID-19 ICT Advisory Committee. But I happen to have been invited and be given an opportunity to address that committee, and also be given a chance to write something for them, which I have actually submitted to them, and hopefully it will be used to inform on a number of things in this society. One of the things is what Waweru has actually indicated about now we are moving into what we call the digital economy. If you look at our policy documents, policy documents are those that guide the government in what they're supposed to do. There's a whole section which talks about digital economy, and then there's another document written which talks about blue economy. Now, the blue economy is really going to be driven by what we are saying ICT and ICT enabled sectors. Now, it has, in all those documents, it has been a challenge for the government, because you are all aware, I suppose, that the government can only function if it's able to meet its obligations, it's able to correct revenue. Once it corrects revenue through taxes, then it can actually be able to offer services. Now, Waweru has actually put something which, if we had a good forum, God willing, the situation will improve in the future. We'll have such forums you guys to address. It is that is a good way of thinking as a patriotic Kenyan. That indeed this society is going to be shaped by ICT, but you can see there are those who will use it in the wrong way, actually saying, "Well, why should I pay tax?" Whereas this tax is what we call a noble obligation, a very, a good obligation for every citizen of this country. Well, never mind, we pay taxes. Sometimes some people misuse our taxes. But you see, two wrongs will not make it end right. So we normally say, you do your obligation, you do your right, because it's the right thing to do. Then the other ones who are misappropriating this, we can actually be able to allow the courts and the court processes to take their course. So thank you, Waweru, for actually highlighting this. And actually, that is a big problem. So in the COVID committee, one of the things that they are looking at is how do you ensure business continuity and ensure, therefore, this evasion and second of things are not, an issue. So I was privileged to supervise one distinguished, allow me not to mention names here because this is a class, I not mention names, one distinguished lawyer to draft something, but which then will make sure these things play well. Not a lawyer, mine is in IT, so I was only giving the IT thinking. As lawyers, they can actually do that which they can actually be able to do in order to make things work. So indeed, that is the situation. So now that then I'm so with the two speakers, I am satisfied that at least you guys got time to read through those documents, just as a way of getting a gist on how things are going. So now I can then mention something here that the essence of that paper was to actually now bring you into the next thinking. But before I go there, I see a hand. Yes, Afandi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Yes.
So my question is, when we were discussing what social informatics really entails, you mentioned that it's a study on the design, deployment, and uses of ICT with interaction with cultural context.
Yes.
So my question is, in situations where you have an IT solution that could be implemented within a certain community, but then the culture that the traditions and the culture that they're living in does not really accept whatever you're bringing to them. How do you deal with that?
Oh, great question. Thank you. In fact, to answer that, and that is what we normally say that we need to understand the people. You see, a system is as good as the users. We need to understand the people, and the people are defined by their culture. Without going into the social philosophy of humankind and human people, we normally say I am because I'm defined by my culture and my, culture defines the way of living, defines the way of interaction, defines the ways of doing things, what you accept, what's not accepted, what's the norm or what's not the norm, and such kind of things. So with that, I will then now give you two context. I was again privileged to do a study for a community in Kenya. I think we read the injurious. If I mention your county, please, it's for powers of discourse. Nothing really personal and nothing negative I'm going to mention about it. I must put that disclaimer first. So this is a county where it's very cosmopolitan. In fact, the county of Laikipia, and one of you comes from there, Laikipia is a very expansive county. It's one of an expansive, county, not in terms of what you call landmass. Now, when we were conducting this study, initially the first study was done by social scientists. I was not involved. And when they went in, they did a very, okay, according to their understanding, but I come from a data science perspective, data scientists and social scientists, their look of things is totally different. So they went and actually collected data in respect to agriculture. Now, and then when they were looking at this agriculture, they were looking at solutions that are there, applications that are used to support agriculture. Now, those of you who are familiar with the environment there, you'll find that it, we have a Kikuyu community, we have the Meru community to the other side, we have the Kalenjin community on another side, we have and other communities are there, quite cosmopolitan. So when you are collecting this data, or when they collected the data, um, one of the things that they wanted to understand, remember I've said that culture divides even the language. Now, one of the things that they wanted to understand is how can this solution or applications that are used to support agriculture be scaled, be made to be useful to them. When something is useful to them, they like it, then they will do what? They'll make use of it, and then it can be upscaled. So the findings from a number of applications that were being compared they realized that most of the applications could not actually be very popular to the people. The reason being one, they were using alien languages. Alien languages like if you go to most of the farmers, and I'm happy these days actually I need to again also to mention that when I talk about farming, well, I'm very happy. One of the first group of students who did the course we are doing, two of them who had also first class honors, and of course others have been working with me on agriculture applications, and they are really good, farmers in agriculture, and they're doing fantastic job. That is another group of people. You see, if you are doing a system for those people who have done informatics or computer science, you see with them, they will actually see the system and use it irrespective of the language which is there. But when you go to the rural place, in the rural place, you realize that majority of the people will talk in their native language or the local language. Now, from the survey, it was found that the most spoken language there is Kikuyu language, but then there is also the Swahili language. Then now we ask the community there, do you understand? But most of the systems then are done using English. Then the question we ask, they ask them. I didn't ask them myself. I've done a different survey in that particular place. Hopefully, I will actually be able to analyze the data and you'll be able to see the papers, how they are using machine learning. The question they were asked is, do you understand these languages, written in English, all these things written in English? You realize that, for instance, I'm not very familiar with most our languages in the country. I could be knowing my mother tongue and a few others here and there, but one of the questions, like you see when you have striga is a kind of weed. You are telling them there is this trigger, but the way they understand this trigger as a weed is another way. Or even when you are telling them a weed, because that is what the application, is written in English, so it will, the information relay will be in English. Maybe trigger or weed. But when you go to the community there, they don't understand that. They want to understand it in their language. So you realize, therefore, the acceptance of that system becomes a problem. When we compared that system, such kind of systems written in English and communicating and delivery of the content in English, we realized that their acceptance level is lower as compared to extension service officers. Extension service officers are those people who are found within the local. They go to the people, sit with them, maybe under a tree or another place, and then talk in the language that they are able to hear and understand each other. They can be able to clarify something. But you realize now the system can't. Now, you see, that is some of the dynamics that you will actually experience. Having said this, right now I'm actually an advisor of an international organization conducting, based in UK, conducting research in Kenya, India, and other continents. Now, one of the things that they are trying to look into is how do you bring the social dynamics of the people into the digitization process. For the first time, I can actually tell you that now, and that's what made me actually indicate to them that I can be their advisor as far as this region is concerned. In Kenya, I am advising them from Kenya, but I advise at that global level. Perhaps if you won't mind in future, I can invite these guys to come and even talk to you towards the end. Right now, I'm shaping their study tools and such kind of things. So now that becomes a bigger problem, as you have actually very well indicated. So if you need therefore to go before you start designing the system. There's a course I teach about design thinking or user experience. What you do is ask yourself, if I'm doing a system, who is my user. Now, I know in what we call functional requirements, which is what you document in chapter 4, quite often we do what we call what the system is going to do, or how the user is going to use the system to achieve what they want to do. But ask you now, going forward, you can see ideally you also want to ask yourself, like, who's this user? You want to know this user, what's the age? You see, Wambua or Rebecca actually indicated very well the receptiveness. The young people will actually accept some of this system a bit fast. In fact, a study at the report without it make preempting. I'm going to make that presentation to the leadership of the county on Tuesday, I think. We found that the young people are receptive to technology than the elder. But then again, there was somewhere where you find that the elders are also receptive to something than the young. So you see, therefore, you ask yourself, okay, who's this user in terms of the age, in terms of the language, in terms of their habits, the ways in which they do things. You will notice that some people will prefer, for instance, if just I give another example, again, I had a chance to work with some people from the Persian community. The Persian, for those who did history, Iraq, Iran, and such countries. That's where you see the Persian community. I was doing a system for their health or their clinics. Now you realize the way in which they write from from right to left. Now for us, we write from left to right. Now that becomes a challenge. So meaning that now when you are going to configure your system, you must configure that, say that when they are typing, it takes it the other way. So you see that what it is, then it means you have actually understood the culture, and you have also tried to implement it into the system. I hope I found I've clarified that, but I will be glad to offer further clarification. I found is it clear? Thank you. There is a question from one of us. Hello. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So no problem. I understand. Actually, the internet in some places has been really bad today, so we take note of that. So now, with that, then if there is any further call forward, but I'm afraid you can always start. I want now to talk about something what we call ICT and the social context perspective. Perhaps it's a continuation of what you read in that document, but it's going to give you some elements of, there are those who support, there is the support, there is the criticism, and such kind of things. As we go deeper into these aspects of ICT, and it is a duality in nature. Great. So this is what I want us to look at: ICT and social context perspectives. In other words, so we want to, from the onset, I should say that there are those who have different perspectives. There are those who have different um, look at things. So none of them is wrong. It's a question of support. It's about how do you support your argument. So really here is to discuss the changing views of ICT in the social context. In other words, how does something change in an environment? Okay, so that is really what we want to look at. So there are things that we call this the technical view. Remember in my preamble, in my introduction, I talked about this the technical look about these things. Now, we can talk about techno now, those who actually look at these things from the positive aspect. In fact, um, as I discuss this, I hope I will not be very complex because this is my domain which I teach advanced levels. So I pray for patience. I try to simplify them to your context. Now, if you recall, I want to just to construct now. I want to construct, knowledge. If I take you back to your foundation courses of philosophy. In philosophy, I do not know. I did a different philosophy from the one you are doing. Mine, I did philosophy and society. You do I think a different philosophy, but the foundation is one. Now, philosophy we normally in that philosophy you may have come up with what we normally say a way of looking at things. Philosophy provides a way of looking at things. That is my understanding. So therefore, uh, in from the philosophy, appreciating how people look at things, we have people we call them positivisms. Those who actually say these things, if they see a vehicle, they don't see anything other than a vehicle because that is what it is. During those class of philosophy, I remember we were comparing somebody who was doing biologist, and then we were comparing an historian, and then we were comparing a mathematicians. Then the object of analysis there. So I'm trying to construct knowledge, please, so that then when I go to the next slide, you can understand where I'm coming from. So in that philosophy class, therefore, we're looking at this object called a dead animal in the forest. Then we wanted to look to ask ourselves if these three people walk to that forest. Now, what perspectives will they have? What thinking would they have? So we started actually analyzing that what usually assists them to think about something is what they already know. Mathematician knows in terms of figures, in terms of size. So here, the mathematicians could have actually started saying, and quite often they will start saying, it was so big. So you see, his thinking is in terms of size, right? Measurements. Now, an historian most likely will start saying, how long has he been dead? Because his form of thinking is in terms of, age and such kind of things. Then, but when you go to the biologist, he is most likely to talk about it is from which, a family, because, elephants belong to a family. So you can see, therefore, when we are talking about perspectives, we are actually saying form of thinking, right? So when the technical view, we are talking about technicists or objectivism are those who actually perceive things as they see them, not as they want to question them. They don't question. This is very important. Now, you can almost see most people who are doing ICT or ICS are likely to be in this view. But my hope is that by the time we finish this course, you will have actually broadened your mind and your interest to be able to then appreciate that, yeah, there is another way in which we look at things. So, positivism therefore assumes ICT to be collection of equipment, artifacts, or techniques which provides specifiable collection and specifiable information processing capability. If you look at these first aspects, what they assume is like this is, an ICT. This is a computer. Computer does the ABCD. Or ICT have deterministic social impact. And that is what we have always held, that ICT has an impact. Usually we normally say impact is the positive aspect of something, okay, which are uniform across social contexts. So they assume, and for a very long time, and I'm going to write a paper on this one, because for a very long time, systems have been done elsewhere. Even when you look at ITU, International Telecommunication Union, or IEEE, which develop the standards that are followed in the group, they never get to understand the social context we are in Africa. That's why you'll find that some of the things, when they are brought to the African environment, they will fail. Why? It's because they assumed that those things will work and have the same impact like they had in their country. I am happy to tell you that at least it's a discussion that I've taken to the international level forums. I've had a chance to talk, and they have actually listened to. The last, uh, the last one I had in this region was in the IGAD forum, and I told people you cannot actually bring something which is working somewhere, even in South Africa, and then you put it in Kenya. It can't. You need first of all to go to the people, sit with them, ask them, do you need this? They'll tell you what they need. That's now because I'm trying to tell them that let us not be very deterministic, but let us be, those who question the environment in which it's going to be. Okay, so now you can see that element of saying, oh, that is working in Malaysia, bring it to Kenya. It might not work, because when they constructed something, they constructed while knowing the dynamics and the society in that particular place. The other thing is here, organizations have formal unitary goals, procedures, and admin arrangements. That has always been the norm. You know what? This still continues to be the norm. Now, what is the consequence of this? You realize that young people like you, when you go to work in an environment, you want to test, you are like, well, if it's being done like this, it can also be done the other way. You want that element of, how to call it, the element of freedom to exercise your creativity. This has always been the cause of non-creativity or innovativeness. Um, and that's why in the university where you are, count yourself like at least. One of the things that we actually talk about is freedom and responsibility. What that means is that, yeah, you can actually be creative, but then try to complement the common goal. That is the essence here. So use of ICT resources is best described by formal purposes and features. That is what it believes. That is technical. And I talk about this because my first profession was engineering. And that is how we used to look at things. It is this measurement, it is this. But as time has gone by, get to appreciate that, hey, you can also look at something in another way. That is one form of technical view. But then there is one can offer, a criticism about this view. I've tried to describe those. One is, what's the criticism? In other words, you are saying, if this is what it assumes and this is what it is, there are weaknesses. What are the weaknesses? One, ICT is not objects, but it includes people and their social interactions. That's what I was talking about. It's not about, at the end, there's the user. The ICT itself is not going to work. It must have the person in it. Therefore, technology is shaped by economic, cultural, and what we call political forces. Without actually hurting anybody, and this is very important to mention because we discuss this and also look at the society. You have always seen discussions going around about some equipments that were procured by the national government and then given to the regional government or the county governments. A wonderful noble initiative. these that were given to the hospitals. Now, over a period of time, some hospitals or some counties have never deployed those, devices. It's over maybe five, I don't know how many years now. Now, you realize that one of the reasons as to why those have not worked could be political forces. Could be political forces. Now, of course, politics is the way it divides the way of life of the people. But also, there is also the other aspects, what we call the economic aspects. Others don't have, in fact, the resources like power and money to buy equipment to support those things. So at the end of it all, you hear people saying it has failed or it has worked. So it all depends on the people and interaction. That's one aspect that perhaps then if the people who came with a wonderful idea had time to reflect a little bit more and have the people and interaction in perhaps there could have been a different orientation, but that is a discussion on another day. Another criticism is that same ICT may produce contradictory and paradoxical impacts in similar organizations. And I think how better can I put it than how Rebecca put it? You see, paradoxical means that you want this, but it surprises you. Okay? Decentralization is one, orally, centralization is another. And you would always hear people saying, oh, through ICT will decentralize. In fact, the contrary could actually be said. It's a question of actually saying, all right, now correct those data from the other side, send them to the center. It's really, so you find that really it's very paradoxical. It gives you exactly opposite of what you expected. So maybe in your thinking, you are decentralizing. Whenever I've had a chance to teach a databases, that's and at least that's what I can say without a contradiction. It is whereby you'll find that databases, depending on how you decide, you end up actually centralizing things. When people think, I wanted to decentralize, and there are discussions around this and that thing. The other one is job deskilling. Deskilling here, uh, the word deskilling, one could actually say, changing the skill. Others would actually call it upskilling. You know, upskilling. So when you find this skilling, then you are likely to see another one, what you call upskilling or skilling. They will go hand in hand. So there's a contradictory in this. The other thing, organization may have stakeholders with different interests. My first encounter with stakeholders with different interests is when I just finished my undergraduate, and in fact, I just finished my undergraduate in the month of, was it April? Yeah, April, and then in the month of July, I encountered some episodes which I didn't believe in. I wanted the computers which could actually support, system. For those of you who have done computer studies in high school, you realize that when you reach in Form 3, you need powerful computers that can assist you to do some good work. So when I went to a place, I found that those who wanted to procure those things, they are procuring things which are like outdated, kilos and say kind of things. And so I told them with these ones, they belong to, a library for people to go and see them as, the history, part of the history. I thought I was helping, but I was actually told, I'm not saying the right things. And I was summoned to meet the politicians of the land then. And I was asked to choose between a job and going back to school. So I chose the second one, going back to school. Because you see, there's no need to fight on interest sharing. So this organization will be different interests are there. And therefore you realize, and this is very important, some people will come and actually use ICT for very bad goals, were well to assist the class also to actually appreciate it. That others will then decide, okay, wait a minute, these fellows have really frustrated me in correcting tasks. Now, can I hide myself using, the online, platform, whereby you are saying online, I'm not going to pay tax. Nobody gets to know how much I made. You see, in that particular case, they have used it for a long race. I think there is a comment on the chat. And I can read because here it comes private. I can read. How about the notion that end users don't really know what they want, and it is up to the developer to make out what the user really wants? A very good sentiment, Stephen. Very. You see, if you go to places where they have never seen technology used, so they'll never know the benefit they get from that technology. But quite often, how do you make them understand? Usually, there's what we normally say, requirement elicitation. I think you read techniques, requirement elicitation techniques. For those of you who are maybe in the security sector, those who are here in this course and are in the security sector, I'm not going to reveal so much, but I'm just going to give a hint because I like using that example. Uh, you see, like, look at it from this way: investigators, criminal investigators. Now, how do they get to, at the end, discover that indeed this is a criminal and say kind of things? They usually have what we call a starting point. Now, I will not tell you what that starting point is because that one I leave it for. But it's sufficient for me to say that they have a starting point. Now, one of the basic things, therefore, Stephen, you would actually do for this one who doesn't know is let them tell you what they are doing and let them describe how they are doing these things. Now, you as actually the developer, you are only supposed to help them do that which they are doing in a better way through the use of technology. So do not be the one actually telling them you should do it like this. In that particular case, then it becomes like you are imposing it on them. The best thing is let them tell you what they are doing. Be a listener. Now, there are, what we call it, points where you are able to say, what did they say? I think, I don't know, there's a seminar which I'm likely to conduct, hopefully towards the end of the year, with colleagues from Oracle. Like, there are specific keywords that you must always speak. When somebody says, I do something, I'll give an example. When somebody says, you see, I keep my things in a store. You see, that statement is very important. This person has actually told you he needs, storage. So now you don't stop there. You must be now an investigator. You go ahead and ask this person, how do you store? But I know most of you will be like, they say that, they store things and you leave it there. But I can tell you, investigators, that's when you hear, oh, they found, yeah. The investigator will actually now want to know, how do you store it? So when they start saying, oh, now when I get this, I put it in this particular section and this other one in this other particular section, you don't stop there. You ask this person the next one, why do you store it this way and this way? The why will then assist you to form what we call the logical rules which you are going to use in programming, rather in coding, to come up with the separation, because now you want actually to separate that element of human intervention who's going to change it the other way, change it the other way, such that you are able to automate. So those are the kind of things. So in short, is that you let them actually describe what they are doing, because a system essentially is more focused on what they are doing. You are correct. They might not know what they want. That's very good, but take them to tell them that you can actually do this in this other way. So they are the people to lead you to actually know how they are doing things and help them to do them in a better way using any available resource and method that you may have. That is how you do it. So now, I hope that answers your question, Stephen. Now it is an hour since we started, so we are going to take a short break of 10 minutes. So after 10 minutes, we reconvene here and continue on the next part of our discussion. So have a short break. Now, having looked at one perspective, the one that we have looked at is what we call the technical view. We've looked at what they look at and what are the possible criticism associated with that. So we'll now move to the next part of the view or part of perspective. That is what we call social technical view. Now, so the first one, you've actually almost seen that the regional view sees technology or ICT as an object. Now, what about the social technical view? Does it look at it as an object? The answer is it goes beyond ICT as an object, but something which is used for the common good of the society. Yeah, most welcome. There is a question. No problem. No problem. I note. You're most welcome. So the main aim of the socio-technical view is to move away from limitations and actually therefore incorporate the issues of ICT. So then we bring in to, you try to look at what we call value. What do I, derive from the common good? Okay. So the ST or socio-technical view method incorporated features of ICT users and organizational context. So this is now, it goes beyond just a technology, but into other human aspects. So you are saying the human aspect must sit in the context of the study, or into the aspects of an object, into the aspect of the ICT. That's why we are saying ICT, user, and organizational context. Which then brings me to the unit which you may have done, computer or HCI, human computer interface. Or you have not done it as a unit, but then aspects to do with that. So whereby you are actually trying to say, as I use this, how is it going to impact the organization? How is it going to impact the user? The other thing is that what value will I derive from there? What value will I as a user? What value will an organization and among others derive from uh, that object? So the purpose here is to jointly optimize objectives of ICT with objectives of the social context. And the social context here, you are saying bring in user and also bring in organizational objectives. Every organization has an objective. That is implementation of the ICT fulfills both technical and social objectives. It is sometimes consensus assuming. Okay, so there is a trade-off. We talk about trade-offs. So are there criticism to this, view? The answer is yes. We should be able to see what are the criticism associated with this. Now, sometimes no consensus, especially where there are divergent interests or power games. You know, you guys, very soon you will be joining corporate world or organization world. You'll then get to appreciate that organizations have their own interests as well as the people who come and work in those organizations. So you see, even individual interests and organization interests sometimes can be divergent. At the same time, you may find that there are power games, whereby you find that maybe um, the people in management have different, interests from the people they lead and such. So therefore, you realize that those will say, okay, let's have the system because we are going to optimize the operations. The management will be like, that's what the objective will look at. The management will look at that objective. That if we put this system, it's going to improve our, operations. But you see, the users may be having interests like this system is going to affect my work. I've had an encounter in this for sure, where the system was supposed to assist in doing in doing some operations, but the workers in that organization were like, this system is going to show how poor I am in my work, or is going to show that I did come to work. And so you can see that is what we call interest and power games. The next criticism of this is where you'll find that the social context of ICT is complex.
Really? Yep.
Why is it complex?
All right.
You will want to understand
You're
what
gonna
we call
destroy me anyway, so I'm not gonna say
inter-people
take
or
it easy. It'll be funny.
intra-interactions.
Not bad.
That's interaction between people.
Is there anyone you want to
There
see
is
me
also
play,
what
like, get a
you
better
also
understanding
look
of?
at in the knowledge levels.
Ooh,
So you realize in an organization,
I'd
chances
love
are
to
the
see
people will
how
not be
opposites
having the
supposed
same
to
knowledge
relate.
level
Okay.
because
Guy
of
or girl, what's your
obvious
thing, Elsa?
reasons.
Yeah, she's a girl.
Others
I was like, she's
may
kind of.
not be having the
I don't
same
get it. She looked bad to me.
manner
Like,
of
outlook. I
interaction,
clearly don't get what she's supposed
right?
to call. I guess she uses cloud
So
stuff.
technology and its history,
Alright,
there are
sounds good.
people who actually say,
A lot
fine,
of people
I
when
will
they're first
not
starting
want
out view
this type
Asher
of
is like pretty
technology.
bad.
An example,
But then you see Penguin play
you
with
may
her,
go
and
to
then
a
you see what's
place
like
and then
possible with this
you realize
character.
that they want Windows based,
Yeah, that makes sense. Because like her
systems.
fox is underwhelming at first. You don't like get
And
what you're supposed to do with them.
maybe you have a system which is going to,
It's a lot
run
of
on
kicks off
Linux.
stage. Especially against
And in
Eliana, you
fact,
got such
we
a
were
bigger
even talking
box.
about this in
Yeah, that makes a bunch
one of our management meeting, where we, well, maybe it's an assumption, but you can
So generally
always
off the Terry, what you want to do is like go for a
check.
down B. So you like want to go over maybe hit
We
the
were
down B.
actually trying
Because
to say
if
that
you get a
if
mine
you
on me
take
while
this
the Terry's done, it's
application,
activated instantly. So you don't have to wait for it
it's
to
not
activate.
going to be compatible with this type of students because most of these students have their computers
Yep.
operating in Linux.
Welcome to
And so
AMSA.
if you bring this application which is writing on another system,
Yeah, that's
rather which
insane.
is writing on Linux, then they are going,
Yeah.
they will
Sneak
be
out and
happy.
back
But there are
people
those
tend to
again
scream.
who are in
Sneak
in Windows.
out
So
and
they,
back.
That's what we call the history of and the technology itself. There's processes
We'll work
and
on that.
practices,
We'll work on
products.
that.
So in other words, all these things divide
It
their
does.
context. So a context is broader.
In general, you want to
A
just use up
context
the
is
last
broader.
resort with
It goes
Eliana. Because
beyond
it can
the
get punished
people.
super
It
hard.
goes into, structures. It goes
And
into
keep in mind,
all
like, you
these
can use up
aspects
all of
that
your
are listed here. So you
all
realize
of your
by
read
the
meter
time you
and
consider
still
all
wall
these
jump and
things
stuff.
and
So you can
decide
still like delay
a
your
good
recovery and
system which
mix up how you get
responds,
back on the stage.
then it would have caused a lot of challenges. So that forms part of the issues that one will need to
Yeah, because you can stall for a
tackle
little bit.
when we are dealing with the system design.
And like if you do a
Now,
down smash,
the
then
sets
it
of
just like sends
assumptions
you
for
upwards
this
a little bit,
context,
so you have that
therefore, is
momentum.
different from those of ICT, and thus
Which can be very
change
useful when you're off stage
optimization
trying to
may
stall for a
be
little bit.
very difficult to optimize. In other words, how do you ensure that the structures and cultures are maintained?
Alien
How do you
disadvantage.
ensure that
Rough.
somebody, the knowledge
Yeah.
level is,
I think my biggest issue with character
okay? In
I
fact,
just want to get
just
text out.
conclude the study,
Right.
I indicated I need
I
to
don't
make a
I don't know like how brain
presentation.
data works in terms
We
of like
looked at
what's
the
the
knowledge
best
level,
game
and
where the figures
whereas
about
many
fuck.
assumed that
But
the majority of the
she
people
gets
working in that
outflanked
environment
by
have
she has to wait for her
a
opening. That's the
diploma
thing.
level
And a lot of her
qualification,
combos as well,
as
like
it turned
rely
out
on
that
hit falling, and if
there
you're
are
not
quite
used
a
to that
number
as
of
a
people who
mechanic,
have
like
lower
it's
than that. So if you design a
I know what
system
it
that
is. I know
only
kind of how
takes
to do it.
care
It's
of
just like a
the
matter of
people who are
all the DI and stuff
in
probably.
that particular knowledge
Yeah.
domain,
Because like the important than like
challenge.
go ahead. Like
So
hit falling
these
out
are
like
some of the issues which
right.
one would actually
The
have to
important thing to know
contend.
for hit falling is that you can essentially
So
buffer it.
those
So as
are
soon as the
the
move goes
two
out, you can start holding
perspectives
down, and as long as you're
that
holding down when
are
you hit your
very
opponent, you'll
important,
do the
and
hit fall.
you
So that
know
makes it a little bit
the
easier to
kind of
input instead of like having
criticisms
to wait
that
until as
come
you're hitting your
into
opponent.
play.
The big thing
Yeah.
with rivals
There is a
compared to Smash
question.
that people have trouble adjusting to is drift DI because you
Oh,
have
sorry,
so much more
it's
control
well
over your
noted.
drift in rivals. So when you're
Thank you
getting
for
combo, like you can
informing me.
hold hard out and you can die at like 40 if you're not careful.
The
But it
next
also helps you
thing
get
I
out of
want us to
combos.
look
If
at
you hold
is
hard out, you can just go
social
to the very edge of the
systems
blast zone and then drift
or
inward.
social
There's a lot more like
informatics
actual true
perspectives.
bread and
So
butter combos
that
in
is
Smash
perspective
compared to
number
rivals.
3.
Most of the stuff in rivals you can
And
DI out of.
now this is the
I
one
know,
that
so there's like a
I
lot of
am
like
trying to
it's
promote.
a lot of reading or
Not
reacting
that the
to
other
die.
ones
And,
are
like,
bad,
almost just
but
know
they are
yeah,
monolithic. You can actually see, like
absolutely.
the last one that
But
we have
that's the thing
looked
I
at,
really
we
like
have
about
actually
this game
said it is
because it feels
actually
so much
complex.
more. It can be a
So,
lot more creative
meaning
combos.
therefore we need
It's
a middle ground.
because it's not like Ultimate where it's like, I get
So,
he's just gonna die out
in
of
a
DI.
minute, please.
But like the devs can't give characters too much space and stuff. Right. Yeah. So much of rivals, even at the top level, is still freeform. Obviously, there are 50-50 setups that you go for, but it's not to the same extent. I think one of the hardest things to get used to playing this character is having the aerial smashes. Yes. Because like I want to do like all these like C6 up tilts, up airs, and I just can't with C6 up smash. But like in this game, I don't like having, or my right stick, I should say, set to tilts. Okay. It doesn't feel good in this game to use tilts on the right stick. I don't know why. Some people, specifically like for Eliana, for Raster, have different bindings where they just have C-stick aerials instead of C-stick strongs and just have a button for strong attacks. Yeah. Endless's main deal is around the ice that he puts down.
Sorry, yeah. So social systems or social informatics perspective. And this is really what now anchors what we are discussing this unit now. What does it actually talk about? Now, it talks about places ICT social context at the center. How does it? Because we are saying ICT are absorbed in a complex societal environment or a complex social system. Now, with it tries to define ICT social context, which have not always been there. And that is what that paper was also trying to bring in the picture. How do you define the ICT context? So
Super
it
fast.
therefore
He can
talks about
jump
we
cancel
need
his
to
dash attack,
understand
or he
people,
just
their roles and
matches over and
relations
over
with
again.
other
Oh, that's cool.
others.
Wait,
In this
I don't
case, we
like
talk about subsystems.
Same.
Okay, that
Same.
people and
I
the
really
interactions
maybe.
create a system,
No.
and that system therefore
How
can create
could
what
you?
we call
My
subsystems.
YouTube
If
content.
we have, let's
No.
say, people working in a particular
Shaming
department,
foreign
interacting
top
with another
Smash
people in
player in the
another
bud.
department. So one department is
Oh
a
right, I can hit your
subsystem
mic.
of another,
That's
but they
the
are
common
both
thing in
interacting.
rivals, like
Hardwares and
character-specific interactions
softwares
work even if you're
also
even
come
your
into
opponent.
play.
Like,
Techniques that you are going to
oh
use in
right, I can hit
developing
your
these
mic. That's the common
applications,
thing in
support
rivals, like
resources on training support,
character-specific interactions work
information
even if you're
structures,
even
content,
your opponent. Like
content providers, rules and norms, among the many things that are going to form what we call the social informatics perspective. Which then means that an information provided in one environment might not be important in another environment or might not be relevant in another environment. That's what we call the social context. So the social systems and social informatics perspective, we are saying now, or social perspective informatics, we are actually saying here is like, look at ICT as a social context, not as an isolated, but as something that exists in an environment of interactions. With that, then it comes to the other aspect of saying now ICT, therefore, social context brings together equipment vendors, technical specialists, management, ICT policies, funders or funding users. It is, in other words, therefore, you are saying, look at ICT from a holistic perspective. For instance, if you are acquiring a device, you must ask yourself, okay, if it breaks down, what do I do? How does it influence what I'm supposed to do? What implication does it have on my daily operations? How does it affect others? So in that particular case, now you are looking at it from the welfare perspective. The other thing is the next one is ICT social context elements are therefore dynamic and are integrated within a matrix of social and technological dependencies. That is true. We all know that ICT environment changes and equipments also change. As they change, they are dependent on the people themselves also to change, and all these technical dependencies. If it is dependent on something which if it has changed, then the other one must also try to be able to change. So that is how you want to look at. So the social, you can see the current system that we are calling the social informatics perspective is more realistic. Is more realistic in the sense that it relates to what is happening. We know technology changes, we know society changes, we know and other things which depend on depend on the society must also change, and therefore it actually brings a more realistic view of ICT. But there is also criticism about this. But first, let's look at what are the assumptions. So here, it assumes that technical element of ICT mix with social context or relationship to form an inseparable ensembles. You know, ensembles is really things which come together. That is an assumption that really an ICT, when it changes, it can actually relate to an environment, and therefore they are going to work together. The other one, impacts of ICT are socially shaped, meaning that it is not like the first aspect, which was very deterministic, but then here it's more dependent on the society than the technology itself. What does that mean? It means if something is used well, then it gives the social good. If it's used badly, then it gives the social evil. But in the technical view, it was actually talking about deterministic. When we talk about deterministic, it means it's like if you put a value X, you are going to find a value Y. No, in this perspective, we are saying no. Perhaps it might not be Y, it can be K, depending on what goes in between. So it tries to give a contra aspect of the social view. Thus, therefore, ICT implementation is often lengthy socio-technical processes, which is actually, we normally say the assimilation. You get time to read, you try to read a little of what we call ICT assimilation. How long does it take to assimilate a technology into an environment? So, there are key issues. Allow me just to go through. To not be a lot. I wanted to stop at exactly 4. So then I give you 1 hour to do something, a basic reflection. So allow me to go through this in the next few minutes. What are the key issues of social informatics? As you can see from up there, we started talking about context. So context of ICT directly affect how ICT are used. In other words, when we say ICT is always linked to the context of use, that is the thing, context of ICT. In other words, you'll find that a phone can be used for the good and can also be used for the evil. You have actually seen their friends who are somewhere who use it for different opinions. ICT are not value neutral. In other words, their use creates winners and losers. So in other words, you cannot actually say it's going to be in between. It's either here we are. You're not going to say that it has a value of in between. It is either it's positive or it's negative. That's what we say. That's the thing. So there is the benefit and there is the losing side. The other thing is that ICT use leads to multiple or often paradoxical effects, which we have actually seen. Sometimes what you expect is not what you get, and you may get something slightly different. That's what you're talking about, the paradoxical nature of ICT. The other thing, ICT have moral and ethical impacts. I think we are going to discuss this as we move forward. That is one of the topics that we'll be talking about, ethical issues surrounding ICT. As you can actually see, it has led to creating people who in their thinking process and in their mode of decision making, the human aspect is not there. The people person is not there. Robotic aspect, that everything has to be a binary, it is this or this, but then that becomes a moral question. The other thing, and you have actually seen really fraud and such kind of things that have come across. ICT are configurable, that is true, and that adds to point number one, which we said ICT context. So meaning that you can actually get as much as you wish depending on how you've actually made your system to work for you. The other thing is ITs follow social technical trajectories. In this case, we are actually saying you follow actually the development itself and also how technology has evolved and also how people have also done what have evolved. So in that particular case, that is what we talk about, social technical trajectory. And ICT components is an evolving series of products, and I think that one. But the people themselves are also changing, and the society itself is also changing. That's what we say follows a socio-technical trajectory. Now, co-evolution of ICT in its life. These are complementation of the previous section that we are talking about social trajectory, but now in a more specific way, we are talking about. You can actually see if you check. There's a person called Moore. May type here. You get them. You can read it. Moore's law. If you read Moore's law, it will explain what this is. Moore's law tries to talk about evolution and the changes that are likely to occur as technology changes. In fact, he predicted that technology changes is going to occur in multiplicity or in doubles. Just to put it this way, if you check with the change in maybe like diodes, transistors, and those things, as they became smaller, the computers also started becoming smaller. So you can see there is a co-evolution of ICT in its life. Okay, and at the same time, you realize that even the human beings themselves, they have also become smarter in the usage of the ICT co-evolution aspect. This is what that slide is all about. So if you get time, read a little more about Moore's law. Talks about even the costs that have actually changed as technology has evolved and such kind of things. I use it a little more when I'm talking about emerging trends. Now, this value of social informatics. This is really so. Basically, if you look at those emerging, these are what we're calling key issues of social informatics. This. The other thing that, in summary, we want to look at the values of social informatics. Now, what we want to ask ourselves is there something good from social informatics, really? The answer is yes. So in general, it helps us to build better computing systems and use them more effectively, efficiently, and humanely. What's most important is this. This has always been missing in many areas. So, and humanely. This is very important. In particular, the inseparability of ICT from its social context therefore defines that you must understand the impact of ICT on society. Get to understand how it's going to be. It's not going to be easy. And as you have seen, it's not always a one way. It is also dependent on many other aspects. But then we can actually say, really, if you understand this, and at least you can be able to point out that, the impacts what's going to have, it's good. What has always been is the way people say, oh, it's going to improve my, work. But then, yes, it has improved your work. But what's the impact does that have on the society? The other one provides us with a useful framework to analyze the complexities of computing systems that we find in our societies. So social informatics therefore gives us that what we call inward-outward reflection. Inward-outward reflection. In other words, from this system, how is it beneficial to the company? How is it beneficial to the society? How is it beneficial to the people? That's the essence. That's the value for social informatics. And these are these reference materials. When I share with you these materials and a bit of refinement, you can actually try to be able to read these. So that is what were my discussion points. I wanted to stop at exactly this hour because there's something I just want to request you guys to do. This is not an assignment that you are going to, again break your neck reading, or it's a question of I want you to, as an individual, reflect on any system that you had help. Remember, each one of you is doing a project, especially online. Like you're not gonna have time to react to it. Right? You'll see a lot of people just kind of spam down. What can you say is the social informatic impact? More specifically, you are here in this. What is the value of the social informatics that can be seen from that system that you are doing? How is that system that you are doing, which you are going to present towards the end of this year, how impactful will it be to the society? That's what I want you to look at. How impactful will it be to society? Reflect on it. That is all that I want you to reflect on. In that your work. So with that, if there is a question, I'll be glad to take that question.
What a problem to have. Yeah, like we haven't had this many people.
Okay, could appear there is no question. I want to wish you a good evening. But before you step out, please sign by typing your admission number on the chat as you sign out. But please take this 1 hour to reflect the social value of of that your system is going to have in the society. Whatever it's going to do, whether you are doing a system which is going to manage cars, I have no problem. Whether it's going to manage patients, I have no problem. That's fine. But beyond there, I want to see the social impact it will have. How will it impact the society? When we meet next time, I'll be really happy to listen to a presentation from a number of you on this the system you are doing. Otherwise, enjoy your evening and bye from